Right, for more on that and the visit by the Mayor, Kabelo Gwamanda, to Diepkloof today and what came out of that address, we're now joined by Patrick Phophi, Executive Director with the Metro's Human Settlements Department. Mr. Phophi, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on tonight. You're hearing the people there. Did you go there today to sell false hope? Because the plight of the people living in the hostels in Gauteng has already been acknowledged. In fact, it was acknowledged as early as 2011, and plans were put in place to address the severe conditions hostel residents are exposed to on a daily. It's now 2023. Nothing has been done.
Good evening, Thabo, and good evening to the viewers out there. And Thabo, thank you for this opportunity. One needs to indicate three issues. Let me start with your first comment that were you there at the hostel to sell false hope? One is not in the business of telling lies, because of when you tell lies, you're unable to recover and your integrity will be affected. It's been a long 3 days, and I think one needs to indicate that City Power has been appointed through an instruction that I issued to the entity to request for them to electrify Diepkloof Hostel, purely because the community or the residents of the hostel indicated that we understand that there's a long-term plan to redevelop or to give us accommodation within the space between yourselves and the city and the provincial government. But however, give us something that we'll be able to live with, especially electricity, because of people have easy yoga or they've tapped into the neighboring community. As City Power has started already with electrifying or providing bulk in the Madala section of the Diepkloof Hostel. And it's unfortunate, Thabo, that things happened the way they happened because of the contractor that's appointed by City Power left site once they've concluded Madala without having to go to Kiani so that they can provide the bulk infrastructure. But the commitment that I've made to the community and the residents at large is that City Power and the contractor will go back tomorrow, engage with the stakeholders so that SMMEs can be appointed and we line up the work. From Monday, they will resume with providing the bulk at Kiani, and then they will reticulate the inner part of the hostel. And I need to also give you comfort that work has been done already. It started with us receiving a BOQ or accepting the bill of quantities from City Power so that we can electrify the area. So we don't sell false hope. Yeah. You can't lie to your people, and we are there to serve. As an official, I need to make sure that we provide services and money spent where it's meant to be spent.
So how many units will you be electrifying? I think there are about 216 units by the last calculation in 2021. How many are there now?
Thabo, I think let's make a distinction. There's the old hostel. We're electrifying the old hostel where people are living, and we are also electrifying the new units that have been built. So the 216 is the units that were built in 2009 by the provincial department. Unfortunately, there was no infrastructure connection. We've allocated 70 of those units, and they are managed by our entity called Johannesburg Social Housing Company, which is JOSHCO. There's about 146 of those units that we are going to electrify, and we are going to allocate those units to qualifying beneficiaries. So we have not added new units, but we need to finalize our planning processes so that we can rehabilitate the hostel in its entirety so that people can live in a habitable area.
So are those 146 still intact? Because, I mean, it said that some of these units, because people were not properly put into these units, were destroyed.
They were vandalized. It is true. We rehabilitated them so that we can allocate them as complete units and rehabilitated with infrastructure so that people can live in a habitable area.
Yeah. And how many applications are you anticipating?
In this magnitude, Thabo, we have 146, and it's a drop in an ocean. There's a lot of applications that we've received, taking into account that we're not only looking at within and the surrounding area called Diepkloof, the township, where people are living in backyards, they've applied as well. So the issue is for us to integrate the entire hostel within the community. The 146 will be complemented by plans that I've indicated or alluded to to say that let's redevelop the area and build 4-story walk-ups so that everybody can be accommodated. The 146, I mean, we're talking the magnitude of 2,000 applications or more, and we won't be able to satisfy everyone. So the redevelopment would assist us to make sure that we make a difference to that community. But Thabo, it's not about electricity only. It's also about water. I've committed to the community that Joburg Water will do an assessment so that we can provide additional taps, as well as providing additional toilets. We know that we're providing a temporary solution, but the development will deal with flushing toilets as well as making a difference, and including that those toilets need to be cleaned.
So what percentage of those people who are applying can actually afford to pay for services and the rental for the properties?
Thabo, our analysis in the normal business, 30% normally affords to pay for services, purely because of they live from hand to mouth. And we need to make sure that whatever we build in the space is affordable. And you know that we give free basic electricity through City Power so that people can be able to access these services. So 30% can qualify to pay for services, but we need to instill the discipline that people should pay for services that they consume. And they need to take the responsibility because of it's not a free-for-all.
Yeah. So, but at this particular point in time, you are just going to be providing these services for free, even for those who can qualify to pay?
No, when we provide electricity, you know that we provide prepaid electricity so that people can be able to reload or energize their units or their households, taking into account, like I'm saying, the free basic electricity that they receive on a month-to-month basis. Yeah. They'll need to top up on a month-to-month basis as and when they consume. Because if you start giving free electricity, then there's going to be a problem.
This is a drop in the ocean, as you put it, 146. My understanding is that there are 64 hostels in the Gauteng province. I don't know how many of those would be falling under the city of Johannesburg, and there are 6 provincially owned hostels. But the province tasked the city in 2019 to manage these hostels. So how many are you managing?
We're managing public hostels as well as staff hostels. We've converted most of the staff hostels into family units. Now we have around 13 hostels that we're managing as a city, excluding the 6 that are owned by province. But when we integrate all of them, we are working together to make sure that we turn the corner and integrate them. And I think, Thabo, let me make this example. In Madala Hostel, that's where we started. We built 4-story containerized units so that we can decant or relocate people from Madala Hostel and demolish the hostel. And this is going to be the approach that we are going to use to make sure that we give people habitable units. We've got land in and around the hostels that we can develop. I mean, in Diepkloof Hostel, between the units, there's land that we can use to develop or build houses for the families that are living there. So that's the approach that we're going to take into account. If you talk about the hostels in the inner cities, well, your George Goff, there are units that are built, so we are going to use the same approach, decant and relocate people so that we can demolish the old apartheid structures that did not have satisfying infrastructure so that we can provide the necessary infrastructure and provide them with decent accommodation.
Yeah. So 3 areas which are, I suppose, in a way you're trying to tell us that you are addressing. One is the management agent. Who's going to be managing this? 2 is, have you done proper infrastructure planning? And 3, which I suppose is even more critical, what's the degree of consultation have you done with these residents?
Let me answer your question as this fold. The provincial department has appointed consultants to assess the bulk requirements in all these hostels that we want to develop. And those reports will be coming forth as and when they complete, so that we are able to establish the infrastructure requirements, whether there's capacity in the area, and how much we need to be investing in terms of the infrastructure in those areas. That's the first part. The second part is that we need to also make sure that these units, as and when they are built, they are going to be managed by ourselves, a property management unit, We are using JOSHCO, our Social Housing Institute, to manage institution or entity to manage these units as an interim. But in the long term, we'll have a property management portfolio that will make sure that we manage these properties according to the norms and standards. And the other thing is that the level of investment that we want to make is to make a difference and make sure that the communities are integrated with people living in and around the space.
Yeah. And the people, have you spoken to them with what you are...
We've engaged with them.
Yeah.
We've engaged with them. Normally what we do, Thabo, is that when we go to an area, we engage with the leadership and we explain the purpose so that they understand. I mean, Matala there is a case in point. We've engaged with the leadership in the space and they understand exactly what the future holds and they are moving along with us. Hence, you realize that whenever we go to the spaces, we talk to the donors and they allow us, they're able to call their constituents so that they can explain to them with us so that they can understand the magnitude of what's going to be done. And
timelines? What timelines are you giving? I mean, the electricity, yes, you're saying City Power is there by tomorrow, but that's a temporary kind of arrangement. The work will begin on Monday. But in terms of, for example, phase one, where you are going to be at least responding to the people and relocating them, what is the timeline that you're putting for yourself?
Thabo, the electricity component that I'm referring to, it's between now and the next 3 months because we need to make sure that we do correct installation and making sure that everything works. So we've alluded that to the community. It might be earlier, but 3 months is the time that we've given ourselves to make sure that all the units are articulated. The second thing is that we're finalizing planning processes. The Matala precinct that I was referring to, we're planning to allocate those units by before the end of this year, meaning calendar year. If we do it by August, September, it's a bonus. But the planning processes that we've set ourselves for will take at least 12 to 24 months so that we can integrate and get the necessary approvals and we can redevelop and ensure that we do what we call an integrated township development so that we can give title deeds at the end. Yeah.
120 million is a budget of some sort that I heard. Now you will know in 2021 there were allegations that 230 million was spent at Dube, Diepkloof, Meadowlands and Phophi to nothing really that we can point to that was actually paid for there. I don't know what's your position on that, but also tell me how much money you are going to be spending now.
Thabo, I think I need to clarify. The 250 million that is referred to is the funding that was allocated by the provincial department to construct or develop units in and around the hostels, for instance, Meadowlands, Dube, Newzroom, which is Orlando West Women's Hostel and Diepkloof. But safe to say that a budget is a budget, but if it's not spent, you lose it to the fiscus or you lose it, it goes back to its origin where the source of funding comes from. If it's not utilized, you lose it. But it doesn't mean that the money has disappeared or it has gone somewhere. It's a budget that says you've got an opportunity to spend or you've got an authority to spend. But if you don't spend it, it's unspent budget, the cash is still in the bank. But we take responsibility of making sure that whatever is there that needs to be paid for is accounted for and it's certified and it's paid to whoever is appointed as a consultant and a contractor. But safe to say that the city has planned between now and the next 3 years in terms of finalizing all these planning processes that I was referring to. We've got 154 million in terms of a capital budget, and we also have a budget for maintenance, which is about 30 million per financial period, to do cleaning and repairs and maintenance in the space. But that funding will be accounted for accordingly. And safe to say that the electrification that's currently underway in Diepkloof, it's been spent under our capital budget. And it's money that has been set aside to make sure that this project is complete.
Yeah. So the 120 million that the mayor was talking about today, that would have been allocated from the current 80 billion budget. How does that fit in? Is that part of the capital budget that you're going to be putting in?
It's part of the capital budget. Take into account that the mayor has indicated the 120 million, which is correct. And over and above that, the 80 million rand is operational as well as capital budget. So it's a consolidation of budgets that the city has approved for us to be able to spend in terms of ensuring that service delivery is done to the point.
Right, Mr. Phophi, appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on. Mr. Patrick Phophi, Executive Director, Human Settlements Department in the city of Johannesburg.